authority that oversees Woodbury County's new jail complex threatened to terminate the contract of the project's general contractor. That's according to documents recently obtained by KTIV. In a letter written by the authority's attorney, the authority said if the, quote, lack of progress continued, the contract would end as a last resort. Now, this is the first of many reports we'll bring you from Freedom of Information Act documents we received from the jail's authority board. KTIV's Matt Hoffman has been digging deeper through those documents. He joins us live tonight. So, Matt, of course, the delays have continued, but is this contractor still on the project?
Yeah, sure, Jessica, that's true. The project is over budget, and officials announced earlier this week it's delayed again until at least mid-May. But the general contractor and the architect have remained on board, seemingly in large part because there's a dispute about who's responsible for those delays. Now, take a look at this. It's an emailed letter from the authority, Housing and Construction, the project general contractor. In the letter, dated December 11th, 2023, the authority's lawyer, Jody McDougall, writes, quote, Hausman's continued breach of its contractual obligations must be corrected immediately. Now, the letter goes on to say, quote, if it is not, the authority will consider termination of the construction contract as a last resort. Now, in a December 22nd, 2023 email, the authority complained about the removal of what they called thousands of pieces of blue tape at the project site. The authority says this was presumably done so that, quote, incomplete work could not be easily identified, end quote. Now, in that same letter, the authority also complained about a lack of manpower out at the site. In the letter, the authority wrote that during a site inspection, manpower seemed low, but the authority later learned the number of workers on site was actually much greater than normal. Now, part of that letter reads, quote, presumably the uptick in manpower was also for show. Please be advised that the authority is considering all of its options in this regard, end quote. Now, Hausman Construction responded to the authority with its own email letter. The contractor called the claims about the blue tape, quote, inflammatory, and said the tape was only removed so that fixes could be completed. Now, on manpower, the contractor said there was sufficient manpower on site to do the work that was available. The contractor pointed to a list of items that were not quickly approved by the authority, even after those fire damper issues were discovered, including a wall issue that wasn't approved for more than a month. In that letter, Hausman wrote, quote, the overall construction effort has also been interrupted and hindered due to an unprecedented slew of late-stage design refinements, end quote. Now, Hausman Construction declined further comment other than what they wrote in those letters that we showed you. The authority itself hasn't gotten back to us yet. Now, these letters were actually previously unreported until they were turned over to us pursuant to our records request. Larry?